He's the legend. He's the scientist with all the answers and all the questions. It's time for another episode of Alex's Science Corner.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alex, what's going on in the wide, wide world of science, my friend?
Oh, well, story number one involves biology researchers have given Ecstasy, the mood drug Ecstasy, to octopuses.
Yeah, I think I saw something about that.
Mm-hmm. And what it is, or the reason they thought about doing this is because we have a lot of genetic links and genetic similarities. It doesn't look like it, but we do have a lot of genetic similarities to octopuses. And one of the things these researchers found is that there's part of the genetic makeup between us and octopuses is certain types of brain chemicals or neurotransmitters have the same kind of genetic makeup in them and us. So what they wanted to do is see how similar those types of processes are. So they gave Ecstasy to a bunch of octopuses and see how they act. Now, one of the things that octopuses are very solitary creatures. And they don't like being around other octopi except when they're mating. And then they kind of like go against that antisocial behavior that they have and will go near another octopus to mate. And then as soon as they're finished that, they go back to being solitary creatures. Well, when they got the Ecstasy drug, they would pick going to another octopus as opposed to any other option. Because they'd have you could go play with a toy, you could go play with another octopus, or you could get some food. They would go to play with the other octopus. And there'd be a lot of physical contact between the two octopi. And these are the same kind of traits that they would see with humans that take Ecstasy also.
What, they want to have sex?
Not just sex. It's the increased social interaction and physical contact.
It's about as social as it gets.
Yeah, but it's not. Yes, but that does not necessarily include sex. In this particular case, it is a lot more physical contact. And so what they're saying is that by giving them Ecstasy, it's triggering the same kind of response in octopi as it would in humans, because octopi have the same kind of genetic makeup for interaction with that kind of a drug. And we have that same kind of social switch available to us, and they have the same switch.
Okay.
So they're just matching up these connections, and the idea being that social interaction switch came at a point in our genetic makeup that where octopi and humans millions and millions of years ago, it came from a common ancestor. Now, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on this because they are getting this interaction, but there are also some other things that could be causing it. It could be a separate switch that developed identically. It could be something that is not turned on in octopi unless you give them the drug, and just side effect. But there's other antisocial behavior that's going on.
Octopi aphrodisiac.
Yeah, it's not that they're going to be searching for it simply because most octopi aren't going to be able to get Ecstasy on a regular basis.
Not unless they got a dealer down below.
Yeah. And then, it's like they also don't have a lot of money, so it's not going to, dealers not going to spend the time and effort to go
I'm just curious.
Octopi's clientele.
It's interesting that someone would come up with that.
Not
in a million years would have thought of.
One of the challenges with testing these kind of things on animals, just because we get partial interaction, doesn't mean it applies in all more cases. You get this one interaction, then this is a one interaction, we're similar with each other. But we use mice for testing psychological and drug interactions. But, as much as mice do react with certain drugs the way humans would, they also don't react with all drugs the way humans would. And so you can do some testing on mice to give you an idea of what's going on with the drug interaction, but that doesn't mean it necessarily will apply to humans. It may apply, but it may not. And so, and the same thing with the octopus testing. We're testing something on octopuses to see where we are similar in this case, as opposed to using mice for drug testing. But it's not going to be perfect. We found one commonality, and we're going on from there.
Gotcha.
Next up is ice volcanoes, and they are on the asteroid, or not asteroid anymore, it's the Dwarf Planet Ceres. Now, the Dawn mission, which is the satellite that had been orbiting Ceres, took pictures a few years ago of these bright spots on Ceres. And they figured out that what is these upwellings of ice that are coming in from below the surface of Ceres. Well, after extended study, they are finding that it has ice volcanoes, or cryovolcanoes, because they're so cold. It's ice, just like rock melts here to make a volcano here. Instead of rock, it's ice. And so, but it's not going to gush out or spew like you'd think of a volcano here on Earth.
But it's just pushed out.
It's just pushed out. It kind of like oozes out. And it oozes at the speed of ice, ice does move, which is why we have glaciers here, or what happens with glaciers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what they found is that the ice volcanoes on Ceres are pretty new, and they're still going on. Now, they are definitely a lot slower because it takes a few million years instead of a few years for them to bubble out or push out. One of the challenges that the researchers who are studying this are trying to figure out is what's generating the heat for this, because they're not expecting Ceres to have enough heat from inside or through interactions with other bodies to generate the heat to have these upwellings of ice come out. So there's something generating the heat, and that's part of what they're trying to figure out. But they are seeing these ice volcanoes, and they are going on. Again, very, very slowly, but they are going on.
Just a quick off-topic question. The probe that was going into the sun, did that go into the sun already?
No. It's left Earth just a few about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
But are there photos coming back from that thing right
Not
now?
yet.
No.
No. It's going to take about 3-4 months before it starts its orbit, because it has to go through a bit of maneuvering to get in position to start its orbit, because it actually has to go out past Mars and use Mars to slingshot back towards the sun to adjust its orbit.
So, all right. So we got 3-4 months before we can see anything on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're right now testing it, and it's going to be going through testing. And one of the challenges with that particular probe is that it's going to be going by kind of close to the sun and then eventually entering into the solar atmosphere.
It burns up.
Well, I mean, that's why it's got that massive heat shield on
Right.
it, so it doesn't burn up.
But at some point, it's gonna.
Yeah, because there's a certain point.
It's gonna be toast.
You're right, because what's going to happen is it's eventually going to run out of fuel, and when it runs out of fuel, it's not going to be able to keep the heat shield pointed at the sun. So on whatever last orbit that is on, the heat shield is not going to be pointing at the sun, and it's just going to get torn apart by the heat.
All right. Any final thoughts, Alex?
No. Do you have any final questions?
I do not, but if the audience would like to answer or ask any questions, I guess ask would be the proper format. Ask any questions about these stories or anything else science related.
Because if you're a biologist who's more familiar with the octopus story and
feel
astronomer,
free.
Feel
free.
Definitely go ahead and tell.
Oceanographer, call in, man. Call
Yeah.
in. All right, number here is 203
837
9924.